why I wanted to finish it early. Sebab nanti means by this week dah lecture, next week kamu dah ada extra 3 jam untuk kamu sebenarnya buat design. Sebab tu target saya habiskan lecture secepat mungkin. So minggu 4, 5, 6 tu kamu dah ada free 3 jam. Sebab saya tak buat lecture, 3 jam tu kamu dah boleh concentrate on the design. So I don't take your extra time to do the design. And that 3 hours also, if you got problem, you want extra consultation dengan saya, kamu boleh je set masa lebih sebab consultation time 30 minit je. So if you want extra consultation, we can meet during the design time, during lecture time hari ni dan juga lecture time besok. So just today and tomorrow we will do lecture. Next week dah tak ada lecture untuk part 1. Nanti bila dah habis part 1, part 2 saya akan buat lagi lecture. Maybe about the most pun 2 minggu lecture. The rest is actually to allow time for you to do design. Okay? Right. So next part, plan location. Okay, so I already thought, during consultation saya beritahu kan, saya akan ajar minggu ni, one is PFD, block diagram. Next is plan location. So plan location ni pun, you have to understand, it divide into 3. Ada 3 benda yang kamu kena buat untuk plan location. So plan location pun sebenarnya banyak kerja juga. Okay, plan location ni ada 3 benda. You have to basically do plan location, site layout, plan layout. So basically kamu nak kena set kat mana kamu nak letak your plan, how your plan going to look like, the layout of your entire plan, as well as the arrangement of the equipment in your plan. So plan location, site layout, plan layout. Okay, again, sebenarnya as I told you, what I'm going to teach here are guidelines for you. Tapi I have to tell you honestly, dia memang impossible untuk kamu fulfill semua guideline yang diberi. Okay, so apa yang kamu buat, you justify. Yang penting dalam design project ni, as I told you, dia tak ada betul salah. Kecuali yang process flow diagram tu ada betul salah lah, penamaan tu semua ada. Tapi untuk case yang mana contohnya plan location, tak ada betul salah pun, katakan kamu nak pilih buat kat Pahang. It's not wrong for you to do in Pahang. But you must give the reason. Apakah reason dia? Justify kenapa kamu nak bina kat Pahang. So on and so forth. Okay. So let me explain first. What are the consideration? Okay. First of all, when you have to choose your plan location, where are you going to do it? Okay. So most of the time, seniors kamu semua pilih local lah. Okay. Tak ada lagi group yang pilih overseas. So I will advise you do locally lah. Okay, you choose a location locally. Tapi kamu bukan just pilih sembarangan. You have to identify ada group yang lebih kreatif which will get the extra mark. Dia tengok daripada Google Map tu, dia betul-betul cari tanah kosong tu, dia betul-betul identify kat Google Map tanah kosong yang di mana dia nak build plan dia. So dia betul-betul identify location, dia bagi koordinat lagi, dia tunjuk dalam report Google Map punya gambar tu, dia pergi lukis lagi plan dia punya tempat yang mana dia identify tanah bidang tu yang mana dia akan build the plan. Okay, so then of course before you go to the extent, you have to decide first lah apa faktor-faktor yang mempengaruhi your decision. So it can be a lot. One is political strategies, environmental impact, effluent disposal, local community consideration, climate, geographical of the land, availability of labor utility, transportation facility, supply of raw material. Okay, maksudnya pada siapa yang buat plan location, okay, let's say you choose Marang Terengganu, let's say, right? So you have to justify in terms of community consideration. Maksudnya kalau kamu pilih kawasan ni, apakah community yang berdekatan dengan land kamu? Adakah community ni cukup tak untuk memenuhi your fulfillment? For example, climate is Marang Terengganu is a kawasan yang selalu hujan. Kalau di pantai timur biasa hujung tahun akan hujan kan? So will that influence your plan? Kalau dia tak influence, tak apalah. Tapi kamu kena discuss. Geographical, kat Marang tu tanah rata ke, tanah tinggi ke, tanah macam mana? You have to write, you have to justify as well. Labor utilities, adakah sebarang utilities yang berhampiran untuk kamu guna? Contohnya you use cooling water, you use heating whatever it is, ada tak source yang berdekatan? For example, next, if you have you have byproduct or hazardous byproduct or hazardous chemical produced from your plant, are you going to treat it yourself? Means kamu ada plan kamu sendiri, ataupun kamu decide kamu nak hantar untuk treatment. Kamu nak hantar kat luar, kamu subcon kepada orang luar untuk treat it. Let's say Indah Water ke, so on and so forth. So is there any nearby treatment that you can send your waste, so on and so forth. So kamu semua ni kamu kena consider dalam report kamu. Kamu tak payah tulis panjang, janganlah tulis berjela-jela, just to identify. Let's say for example the availability of labor. So you say Marang Terengganu is nearby, the location of my plant is nearby to the town of Marang, of which we have available labor, something like that. Okay, so that's also enough to justify kat mana sebenarnya justification kenapa kamu pilih location tu. Okay, so first of all, political and strategy consideration. Okay, one of the consideration is political and strategy. Apa maksud dia? Okay, if you realize our government of Malaysia, they frequently provide certain incentive if the company to build the plant at certain area. Okay, contohnya, if you decided to build your plant in Sabah, Sarawak, Labuan, or kawasan Pantai Timur, Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang atau Mersing, you get exemption of income tax of 85% for the first 5 years. So, macam katakanlah kamu decide kamu nak bina plant kamu kat Kelantan, Terengganu, let's say, for the first 5 years, kamu ada tax exemption 85%. Kamu bayar 15% je tax kamu. So contohnya kamu kena bayar tax 100k daripada 5 lah kan. Saya bagi contoh, okay lah 1 million lah. By right kamu kena pay 1 million but you get 85% exemption. Kamu bayar 150,000 sahaja. 150 tu government kata tak payah bayar tax tu. Tapi untuk 5 tahun pertama lah. Sebab kenapa 5 tahun pertama? Remember I told you normally plant company will take 5 years to break even. Any standard company pun biasanya 5 tahun untuk break even. Sebab dia nak recover balik duit investment, dia bina bangunan, dia bina facilities. Normally will take 5 to 10 years. Sebab tu government give this kind of exemption. So let's say you decided to build in Kelantan, in Pasir Mas, let's say. So you can put one of the justification. Sebab if I build this in Kelantan, I will have, this is the government policy, blah, 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 I will have tax exemption. The company will have tax exemption, blah, blah, blah. Done. So I will accept it as one of the reason why you choose to do it in Pasir Mas. Okay, macam tu je, senang je. Report tak payah berjela-jela. Kena terus straight to the point, terang, done. Okay, that one is for political strategic consideration. Next, sometimes on the raw material that you use also, you might get certain incentive from the government. For example, if let's say you are using oil palm biomass, sisa kelapa sawit, okay, sebagai kamu punya raw material untuk menghasilkan bahan-bahan lain, okay, you for example bio-based chemical, biofuel, board, kalau kamu gunakan sisa kelapa sawit ni untuk buat chemical, untuk buat board, kamu akan dapat this following exemption. For example, income tax exemption of 100% for the first 10 years. Bayangkan untuk 10 tahun pertama tak payah bayar income tax kalau kamu guna sisa kelapa sawit sebagai bahan mentah kamu. So this is one example of the incentive given for the government. Kenapa? Sebab Malaysia is the second largest producer of palm oil. Okay, Indonesia is first, Malaysia second. Kita adalah pengeluar minyak kelapa sawit kedua terbesar di dunia. So kita menghasilkan banyak sisa kelapa sawit. So this is the government incentive. You use my waste. I don't expect you to pay me back in terms of income tax. This is something that government does. Okay, so it depends on your process. Tak semestinya semua proses akan ada this kind of exemption. So you can check, you can do a little bit of googling. Biasanya benda semua Google je. Kamu tak payah bimbang. If you have, adalah. Kalau tak ada pun, tak apa. Okay, so tak semestinya kamu kena pilih kawasan yang ada political incentive ni. Kalau tak ada pun tak apa. Contohnya kamu pilih Melaka. Melaka tak ada government incentive. Tak apa pun, takkan salah pun sebenarnya. Just that you mention lah. Tak ada sebarang insentif lah untuk kamu tak ada insentif in terms of government policy if you build it in Melaka, for example. Next, it's also equally important, raw material supply. Kamu kena tahu sekarang siapa yang buat untuk plan location. Kamu dah tahu raw material kamu kan? Kamu dah kena identify siapakah supplier raw material kamu. Okay, for example, if you are building your plant in Terengganu, kamu dah kena pastilah ada tak supplier raw material berdekatan. For example, you're using syngas. I want to build in Terengganu. Do I have any supplier of syngas nearby? So you have to identify siapakah supplier of your raw material, and you have to state in your report. Certain groups, your seniors are very good. They can even specify nama company tu terus. apa company akan menjadi supplier raw material dia. So this is really creativity. If you put extra, of course you get the extra marks lah. As I said, kamu takkan punish, you won't be punished, but you will definitely be rewarded if you put more than what is expected. Okay, so that's one of the example. Next, usually plant that produce bulk chemical should be close to the source of raw material. If the cost of shipping is less than the cost of shipping product is less than the cost of shipping fee. So ni pun ada juga dua masalah sebenarnya, sebab kita pun tak boleh fikir just in terms of raw material. We also to think in terms of supplier, we also to think about customer, right? So katakan kita bina dekat dengan supplier, jauh dengan customer, susah juga, because then you have extra cost nak hantar kepada supplier. So by right, when you choose the place, you have to identify balance kedua-dua benda ni. Dia adakah cost, katakan kamu bina dekat dengan tempat supplier kamu, tapi kamu tempat supplier kamu tapi jauh daripada kamu punya customer, so you will incur high cost for the shipping. Okay, so you have to consider that part. Katakan raw material kamu tu, in my simpler way to understand, katakan raw material kamu tu murah and the shipping cost will not cost that much, I will consider building it nearby to my customer, especially kalau produk kamu tu mahal atau murah. Dia macam ada balance lah. Dia macam tak ada betul salah pun. Tapi macam saya biasanya I will consider in terms of how. Kalau produk saya tu murah, okay, I will build, kalau produk saya tu murah, raw material saya macam saya cakap, ni susah juga. Dia actually pertimbangan dia lah. I tell you, there's no right or wrong. Okay, there's really no right or wrong. As long as you can consider siapa supplier, siapa potential customer, and if possible you can fulfill both, then that's the best one. Okay, so another example, oil refineries are typically located near major population center because they produce a variety of fuel grade that are costly to ship separately. So also juga ada consideration if let's say you are doing that. Okay, now an example sebagai contohnya, let's say now you are using chemicals and you want to identify the main supplier. Okay, so these are usually the main supplier untuk the petrochemicals. For example, kalau katakan your raw material uses naphtha ataupun menggunakan methane gas, menggunakan ethylene, propylene, benzene, toluene, these are normally the common supplier. Okay, or example, the petrochemical zones, if you are using petrochemicals as your raw materials, okay, as listed here, these are the main zone of which these products, these raw materials are manufactured, and mostly they are either in Kerteh, they are in Gebeng, or they are in Pasir Gudang, Tanjung Langsat. Okay, so these are the main industrial zone lah. So sometimes it's also smart to build either in the industrial zone or nearby to industrial zone. Kenapa? Sebab tu senior-senior kami biasa akan pilih tempat-tempat industrial zone. Kenapa? Definitely kalau dekat dengan industrial zone, customer pun sana, supplier pun kat sana. Sebab industrial zone akan ada banyak-banyak industri, right? So when you build nearby or in the industrial zone, advantage dia customer kat sana, supplier pun kat sana. And then I will have another advantage which I will explain later. Why sometimes it's quite smart to build near industrial zone or in industrial zone. However, masalah dia, harga tanah mestilah mahal. So industrial zone kan, industrial zone, the land price will be definitely more expensive. However, akan ada advantage dia, which I will explain later. Okay, next. Transportation. Sebab tu, kalau dah identify customer dengan supplier, then baru kamu identify what kind of transportation that you will use to connect to your supplier and your customer. Okay, ideally your plant must be nearby two major modes of transport, either road, highway lah, rail, train, waterway, canal or river, or port to be nearby the sea. So dalam report kamu, katakan kamu pilih let's say in Kulim. So Kulim is connected by highway. Kulim is nearby to which port? Katakan Penang port, so on and so forth. Kamu kena identify clearly apa major transport yang berdekatan dengan kamu punya plant in your report. So benda ni memang setiap report akan ada yang berlainan sebab kamu akan place your plant at different location. So kalau let's say you're using, you are supplying or you are buying it locally, definitely road transport lah. okay, used and well suited to local distribution. So kamu kena ingat, most of the time from your plant, you will send to the warehouse first, central warehouse. Central warehouse baru kamu akan ship. Okay, so normally we will use road. Okay, next, rail transport. Katakan kamu produce bulk chemicals and you want to transport locally, we will use rail lah, kereta api, a train. Okay, although it's slower compared to roads, but the cost is considerably cheaper. And don't forget, it must be also nearby to an airport. Although you might not use airport for your shipping, but for the travel of your personnel, your workers, equipment, supply, for example, your spare parts for your equipment, supply, certain kind of supply, kalau you want it urgently, you will have to use air shipping, right? So you have to identify juga the nearest airport to your plant. Okay, so nearest, again, kriteria dia, senaraikan apa mode transportation yang berdekatan dengan your plant, at least 2. Tapi itu pun bergantung kepada supplier customer kamu. Kan saya kata kamu dah identify kan supplier customer. Kalau locally, so you identify lah railway dengan road. Okay, katakan customer kamu overseas, kena identify berdekatan dengan port mana, berdekatan dengan airport mana. Okay, seaport, airport, tu dia penting. Okay, next one is on why sometimes I told you it's good to choose industrial zone ataupun kamu pilih nak bina dalam industrial zone yang sedia ada, sebab industrial zone ni biasanya dah ada semua benda yang kamu nak. Apa maksud dia? Okay, example in Malaysia, these are the 4 main industrial zone. Okay, Kertih Terengganu, Gebeng, Pasir Gudang Tanjung Rasat and Bintulu. Dia ada 4 industrial zone. Okay, kamu kena faham, industrial zone ni are supported by government, supported by, because government wants to make sure as many investors as possible. We want to invest in Malaysia. We want to invest in this industrial zone. Dia nak lagi ramai company bina plant dia kat Malaysia. So that's why they build special industrial zone and they provide you all these benefit. For example, kalau kamu bina your plant at Kertih industrial zone, Kertih ni dah dekat dengan Kertih Port, Kuantan Port. Dia dah beritahu dah apa yang berdekatan. Contohnya, if you build in Gebeng, Pahang, they are nearby to Kuantan Port, Environment Technology Port, East Coast Highway. Dia ada highway, dia ada seaport. If you are in Bintulu, Sarawak, you are nearby to the Bintulu Port, you are nearby to the Bintulu Airport. Okay, so itu advantage bina dalam industrial zone. Dia dah make sure dah ada complete transportation system for you. Okay, contohnya kalau kamu pergi nak tahu semua benda ni, senang je. Google sahaja benda ni, sebab every industrial zone dia akan ada website dia sendiri. For example, you can go to Pengerang one, you Google Pengerang, they will give you all the things about Pengerang punya industrial zone. Gebeng, macam contohnya yang ni saya Google Gebeng industrial zone, kamu tengok dia terus tulis. Kalau part road and railway, dia kata for Gebeng, the East Coast Highway which link Kuantan and Kuala Lumpur, estimated travel time 2 hours. Railway link connects the Kertih to Gebeng and Kuantan Port. So dah dalam website ni dah tulis dah sebenarnya, tapi like I say, you tak boleh cut and paste. Saya still will check for turn 18. You have to rephrase. Kamu tak boleh cut and paste before I forget. I will also turn 18 your report. Okay, so you cannot just cut and paste from the website. You still need to write it yourself, rephrase it. No cut and paste from the internet or even from your seniors. Okay, saya lupa nak terang pasal benda tu. No cut and paste. Kamu still kena terangkan dalam ayat kamu sendiri. Okay, right. So next one is on labor. Kamu kena identify juga. Let's say if you want to build it somewhere far away, do you have enough labor for it? So construction, operation of the plant will require labor, people working on it. Okay, skilled construction worker comes from outside the area. Biasanya kalau construction kamu nak bina plant kamu perlukan skill construction area, right? Skill construction worker. This one you can import temporarily. Bila kamu nak build plant tu, maybe for the first 2 years, 3 years nak bina plant tu, you can actually get people to come in. Okay, but kamu kena ada juga enough labor permanently at the nearby your plant that will work after to run and operate your plant. So, skill craft worker. Selain tu, kamu juga perlukan electrician, welders, pipe fitters for the maintenance of the plant. Okay, so that's why you have to make sure your plant location must be nearby to places where there are communities. Okay, next, utilities. Your plant need utilities as well. So for example, you need a lot of water for cooling. Okay, so the plant must be near a good water source. Processed and cooling water can be drawn from a river, well, or purchased from the local authority. Elsewhere, you need cooling towers. Besides water, you need also electrical power. For example, you also need steam. Kan tadi saya cakap pasal steam kan? You need steam for power generation, steam for your heat exchanger, so on and so forth. Okay, kamu pun kena identify. Tetapi bonusnya, nak I said, kalau kamu bina kat dalam industrial zone, benda ni semua dah ada. Example, if you book in Kertih, Terengganu, in the industrial zone, dah ada facilities. One, gas processing plant. Peninsular gas utilization, centralized utility facility. Dia ada centralized utility punya center yang akan supply kepada semua plant dalam industrial zone dia. Okay, sama macam Gebeng pun sama, macam Pasir Gudang pun sama, mesti ada. So that's the benefits of building industrial zone. Government provides you with all these advantage infrastructure, but of course it comes with money lah. That's why for you to build it there, you have additional cost, but you don't have to worry to build or find all these utilities. They are already provided within the system. Okay, so for example, contohnya ni, this is again from Gebeng. So for example, dia beritahu kamu, electric supply will come from Tenaga Nasional Berhad. Dia beritahu dah siapa will supply your electricity. Water is supplied from the Semambu Water Treatment Plant. Dia beritahu dah siapa akan supply water. Natural gas. So for example, if your system is using natural gas, okay, Gebeng Industri ada supplier dia, Gas Malaysia and Petronas Gas Berhad. So let's say you're using gas, natural gas for utility, for raw material pun boleh, for utility pun boleh. Okay, you have already in Gebeng tu dah ada supplier, dia dah kena pasti supplier that will provide you with this utility. Okay, so that's the advantage if you build in industrial zone. But tak semestinya kena build dalam industrial zone. It's really up to you. Next, geographical of the land. Okay, so kamu kena consider maybe in Malaysia this is not really so much problem, tapi sekarang pun kamu tengok earthquake pun kadang-kadang berlaku jugalah, although we don't really feel the direct impact, but we do feel the impact of earthquake as well. So the proposed land and future expansion must have enough suitable land. They must be flat, well drained, load bearing, dia boleh tahan beban. Building lands on reclaimed land near the ocean in earthquake zone requires caution. Okay, so macam kes kita mungkin not too bad because we don't really encounter that major earthquake, but you may need to consider as well as one of the factor, and of course eventually yang paling penting, land cost, harga tanah. Kalau harga tanah terlalu mahal, of course this is not possible. Okay, so next, climate. So cuaca juga. Okay, sekarang kamu tengok asyik banjir, so on and so forth, right? So now climate also become an issue for Malaysia. So unfavorable weather condition raise cost. Okay, so kalau mereka kalau sekali banjir, kalau banjir masuk plant kamu, you imagine how much cost if your equipments are damaged, so on and so forth. Okay, but in the case for us maybe we are not too bad because we don't encounter the 4 season. Tapi bayangkan in those country with 4 season, imagine kalau you are running high temperature condition and it's in winter. Katakan winter cuaca bawah beku, but your equipments are running at high temperature. So imagine kamu nak make sure tak ada heat loss, you have to prepare insulation, so on and so forth. Kalau tak insulate betul-betul kan haba hilang, then habislah equipment you will not be able to run at its efficient condition. So there's also a challenge in a fall weather condition, and if your country, our country we don't have this, but if your country have hurricane, cyclone, earthquake, so this is also a major factor when you are building your plant. So kalau Malaysia, I'll probably say we will avoid rain, hujan lah, but mostly now I think the most common one is actually flood lah. Okay, so the next one part, so I skip this one, this is just a little bit of story, I will just skip sebab masa pun tak cukup. Next one, local community consideration. Kamu pun kena consider, okay, of course kena consider tempat untuk labor kamu kan, tapi consider juga kalau kamu bina at a place where there's already local consideration, ataupun kamu kena consider plant tu must be acceptable to the local. It must be safe. So katakan kalau your plant is producing hazardous chemical or hazardous gas, is the distance safe enough to the local community? You have to consider the safety risk. Then you have to also provide, sebab kamu jangan lupa your workers will come from this community. So you have to ensure they are good local community service macam bank, macam sekolah, mosque, prayer place for you, shops, supermarket, so on and so forth. So kalau kamu bina pada kawasan yang dah ada penempatan, not too bad. But let's say you're building a new place where there's no community, you may have to consider providing all this. Maybe hostel pun kamu kena provide if it's too far from the community. Okay? So, kalau you are using hazardous chemical and so on, you must also consult the local community sebab kamu masuk tempat orang kan. So, you have to consider whether there's something that is okay for them or not okay for them. So, there's also a factor you have to consider as well. Okay, so this is example. This is actually Pengerang industrial area in Johor. So you can see this Pengerang Pengerang industrial zone is actually built in a very strategic location, of which they dah consider semua factor. Apa maksud saya? Okay, if you realize, this orange zone is the entire Pengerang zone. Okay, so you realize first dia nearby dengan port. Okay, I think Pengerang is nearby to the Pengerang port, just nearby to port. 1, 2. If you perasan, they have this buffer zone. Dia dah allocate certain zone yang tutup the entire industrial zone, so that this buffer zone can buffer away from any noise or any accidental release or any kalau ada explosion ke apa, you have this buffer zone. And then on top above this buffer zone baru ada residential dengan commercial area. So they have this buffer zone to protect the community. Same time, they have the system connected to the main electricity, national grid for the electricity. Dia ada main grid to the national electricity. Saya rasa mungkin internet terputus kot. Tiba-tiba semua orang keluar, saya rasa internet terputus. Tak apa, saya sambung. Nanti diorang tengok balik recording lah. Just apa happen during the reaction class, tiba-tiba semua orang keluar. Saya ingatkan apa, rupa-rupanya internet kat campus terputus, semua orang tiba-tiba keluar. Okay, right. So next one, tapi we left just a little bit, so I will just continue lah. Next one, you have to consider also on the environmental impact and your effluent disposal. How are you going to treat your effluent? Okay, are you going to send it outside or are you going to treat it by yourself? You want to treat it by yourself, then you need to have a good treatment system untuk treat it. So next is the proper authorities must be consulted during the initial site survey to determine the standard that must be met. Okay, so that's on plant location. Okay, so yang tadi saya discuss banyak-banyak ni baru sampai plant location. Now I will go to site layout. Okay, plant location adalah bila kamu nak decide mana kamu nak bina plant kamu. Next, how will your whole company or your whole plant will look like? Layout dia. Okay, so layout dia. Example, this is example of a layout. Kamu tak payah buat 3D certain senior kamu dulu ada yang nak buat 3D, tapi saya kata if you want to do 3D so much better, tapi 2D pun cukup lah. Tapi dia mesti ada certain things in your site layout, which is first kena ada parking area. Where's your entrance to your plant? Where's your office? Where's your own plant? Where's your research lab, so on and so forth. Ni tak lengkap sangat. Okay, ni yang lengkap. Tapi ni 3D lah. Kamu buat 2D lah. Okay, you can see here. Site entry, gatehouse, car park, laboratory, process, workshop, admin building. You have substation for your utilities, electricity. You have all these are your chemical plant. So this is done 3D. But for your case, kamu buat 2D pun dah boleh. Contohnya nanti saya tunjuk sekali lagi. But what should be in your site layout? Okay, so site layout, you must arrange it so that it can facilitate material and personnel, your worker throughout the site. Hazardous process kept away from other structure, and kamu kena pasti empty land for future expansion. So the site future expansion must also be consider. Okay, so what are the things in your site layout? First of all, storage for raw material and product. So tank and warehouses. One, so kena ada storage area. Two, maintenance workshop. So kena ada workshop. Three, store for maintenance and operating supply. Ada workshop, ada tempat untuk kamu store kamu punya maintenance supply. Next, laboratory. So kena ada lab. Kenapa ada lab? One is to do R&D. Katakan kamu kena ada satu lab yang akan buat R&D. One. Two, lab untuk jaga QC, quality control. So biasanya kamu hantar produk, kamu ada produk kan? Kamu hantar lab, lab akan QC, check dulu penuh tak standard dia, baru lepas untuk production, baru lepas untuk hantar kepada customer. So you have a laboratory. Next, fire station and emergency services. So it depends. Tak semestinya semua plant ada fire station. If your plant is a small one, you probably don't need a fire station. Tapi kamu kena identify apakah fire station nearby to your plant. You don't need to have a fire station on your own, but if you don't have, you have to identify which is the nearest fire station to your place. Klinik pun. Biasanya kalau kat dalam plant, first aid tu adalah kan, but for treatment center, just identify nearby clinic, nearby hospital. Next, utilities. Steam boiler, compressed air, power generation, refrigeration, transformer station pun kena ada. Next, effluent disposal plant. Water treatment, wastewater treatment. Do you have your own water treatment? Tak semestinya kena ada. If you are producing a lot of byproduct, katakan you have a lot of water, okay? So you might consider having your own wastewater treatment plant. But katakan kamu tak ada pun tak apa, but you have to identify you are going to send your waste to which kind of treatment facilities. Or sometimes your seniors, apa yang dia buat? The side product tu dijual sebagai produk. So kalau dijual side product dia, tak payahlah dia buat treatment plant, which is also quite good. Okay, dia kata dia dah separate, dia purify. So dalam plant dia ditambah sikit purification part. They sell the byproduct as also to make money. So there's also a consideration that you may consider. Office kena ada. Okay, kamu kena office untuk kamu punya HR, kamu punya boss, all the administrative staff will have its own office. You have canteen, kena ada canteen kan, amenity building, toilet, and then parking lot. So this is a very simple example of a site layout, but I've seen a very good one from your seniors. Actually this part saya rasa memang student memang pandai. I've seen a lot of creative one. Okay, tak apa, kalau kamu tak sure nak start daripada mana, as I told you, you can always Google tengok site layout for a chemical process plant. I allow you to Google, you boleh cari, tapi kamu kena lukislah sendiri yang kamu punya. Okay, so you have to draw by yourself. This one you can use normal Microsoft Word pun dah boleh, PowerPoint pun boleh. Okay, tak payah 3D, 2D pun boleh. Just tunjuk kat mana plant kamu, di mana your everything that I've mentioned here. Kalau tak ada dalam site layout ni, kamu kena mention, katakan tak ada fire station. So you mention fire station will not be in the plant. The nearest fire station is located in blah 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 blah. So saya akan faham kenapa tak ada fire station dalam kamu punya site layout. Okay, so next. Bila kamu nak menentukan kedudukan site layout kamu, sebenarnya ada banyak guideline. Okay, so I will tell you general guideline. This is for your knowledge. Okay, memang takkan possible kita boleh penuhi ke semua guideline ni. Okay, just to give you certain guidelines. Okay, so this is basically the example of all the guideline when you want to consider your site layout. Okay, tapi in particularly, I will tell you the particular ones yang penting. Okay, so first of all, your boiler or your air compressor. Ingat kan kita kadang-kadang akan guna boiler kan untuk hiram, and you will use air compressor. Okay, for this normally they must be located away from hazardous areas sebab dia panas. Okay, so boiler is not panas, also high pressure. Sorry, not it's hot. High pressure. So it must be far from hazardous area to avoid explosion. Okay, maintain separation, adequate separation, because utility failure can lead to unsafe condition. So kadang-kadang if your utility have failures, it can cause a lot of damage kalau ada explosion. For example, biasanya sebab high pressure, high temperature lah. So explosion, fire, so on and so forth. So kita biasa jauhkan dia daripada the main processing plant. Next is maintain adequate spacing between boiler or generator to improve utility reliability. So kalau kamu ada lebih daripada satu boiler, kita tak susah boiler tu berdekatan each other. Okay, so to avoid, to improve its reliability of the boiler. Okay, next one. Next one is control room. Kamu ingat kan dalam plan kamu misalnya satu control room where all your control will be done in that control room. So control room must be safe for operator to safely shut down unit in emergency. Okay, ni maksudnya katakan kamu ada plan kan. Kalau kamu letak control room kamu tu berdekatan dengan plan, kalau berlaku kebakaran, okay, control orang yang nak control room tu must be able to enter the control room to shut down the equipment. So kalau dia tak boleh masuk control room, dia tak boleh control, so that become an entire problem. So the control room must be somewhere safe so that the personnel can enter the control room and shut down units. Kalau katakan unit tu ada masalah, dia boleh safely shut down unit tu. So kalau control room dalam tempat di mana kebakaran tu berlaku, then that becomes a big problem. Okay, if separation is not possible, design the building to withstand possible explosion or overpressure. Sebab tu certain buildings will have blast wall. Okay, certain building, certain plant, katakan equipment tu adalah high pressure, high temperature equipment, they have a blast wall. Maknanya you can contain the explosion within the room itself saja. Maknanya dia takkan explode, dia takkan blast keluar daripada plant tu. Is contained sebab blast wall ni boleh tahan explosion tu. They can sustain or somewhat sustain supaya dia boleh kurangkan impact explosion and do not cause more damage to the other buildings. Okay. Next one, warehouse. So katakan administration warehouse. Where do you place it? Okay. They are kept away from process area. Mestilah kalau kamu letak bangunan admin dekat dengan plan meletup, habislah bangunan admin. Bangunan admin, you have all the administrative people, right? So normally you do it far away from each other so that kalau apa-apa berlaku kat plant, it will not affect the administrative buildings. Okay, next, welding equipment, car, trucks, as well as large crowd can become uncontrollable emission sources. Maksudnya, janganlah parking lot kamu dekat dengan plant. Kalau kamu tahu kan, kereta is explosive also, right? Easily explosive, right? Imagine you build a plant, ada kebakaran, dekat tu, you will damage a lot more. Okay, so that's how you decide on the location sebenarnya. Dia bukan, bila kamu nak buat site layout ni, dia bukan just sebarangan, you actually have a lot of rules. One, flash. Okay, so loading and unloading, flash and also loading, unloading. Loading, unloading operations should be located at the plant perimeter near the entry gate to reduce plant traffic and accident hazards. Locate flash as per standard. Okay, so nak locate, kalau you have flash in your plant, you have certain rules for where you can place your flash. One, two, loading, unloading. Katakan kamu menggunakan you want to load your load and unload raw material dengan kamu punya produk. Okay, so dia mestilah dekat dengan bukan kawasan yang banyak trafik. Sebab kamu nak loading bahan kan, kamu nak ada load masuk lori ataupun lori or whatever it is, or unload from the lorry or from the railway or something, you avoid tempat yang banyak trafik because that will cause a lot of issue jugalah kalau dekat dengan trafik. So there's also consideration that you need to consider on the plant layout, the site layout. Okay, last one for today, plant layout. Apa beza dia? Site layout is the entire factory. Plant layout adalah dalam kamu punya plant tu susunan of your equipment. How are you going to arrange your equipment? Contohnya, this is an example of a plant layout. You see they arrange their storage tank, their compressor, their blowers, control room, so on and so forth, separators. So for this plant layout, kena buat juga untuk student yang nak buat untuk part yang plant location, dia kena buat 3. Plant location, site layout, plant layout. So for plant layout, you got 2 choice. Either you do, kamu susun equipment kamu ikut proses. Means kamu tengok PFD tu, kamu susun equipment kamu betul-betul ikut aliran flow of the PFD. Or second one, you can actually group your equipment together. So contohnya you group all your product tank together, separator together, heat exchanger together, reactor together pun boleh. So either you follow ikut flow PFD or you follow by grouping the equipment together. Okay, so again sebab rasa ramai yang kena lagi internet problem, I just remind back, please see the video again, please ask your friend to see the video again. For those yang buat plan location, you have to do the 3 parts. Plan location, site layout and ultimately plan layout. Kamu kena keluar dengan design layout dia. Okay. So next part is, saya tengok tinggal 3 orang macam saya nak ajar ni. Okay. So next part is I will go a quick one. These are the factors or things that you have to consider in your plan layout. Okay. So it consists of economic consideration, process requirement, convenience of maintenance, convenience of operation, safety, future expansion. So again, as I told you, tak semestinya kamu boleh fulfill semua. You have to see which one are applicable to your plan. Next one is on the equipment. So kalau equipment pun kamu kena consider equipment pump, gas compressor, air compressor, cooling tower, tank. So all these have its consideration juga when you're doing your plan layout. Okay, alright. So I think that's all for today sebab saya rasa semua member pun mungkin internet problem lagi, semua dah keluar. But never mind, the last part is not so important. Just that important part, you must make sure you do the plan location, site location and plan layout. Okay, with that I end the class. Kesian kamu Anis, kamu tinggal seorang je. Okay, dah come back dah. Alright.